Welcome, collectors. We're at hour 20 of Hobby Palooza 2024 here on day 2. And up next, we have got a great program of modern baseball card talk with the guys from Spitballin Cards. But before we get there, this Hobby Palooza event, we are all focused on the charity here for Signatures for Soldiers, a very worthy cause. And I've got some information here for a little bit about the charity as well as how you can donate for this great cause here. The official charity of Hobby Palooza 2024 is Signatures for Soldiers. Since 2014, it has been their mission to help serve those who served our nation when it called on them and who now need our help. They work in cooperation with other charitable organizations to assist veterans with disabilities, homeless veterans, and existing members of the armed forces and their families who need extra support. Their efforts have been documented in Forbes and Beckett magazines. They will be operating a booth at the National, which is their biggest fundraising event of the year, as it includes a charity auction with the support of Heritage Auction House. For more information, visit signaturesforsoldiers.com. To donate to Signatures for Soldiers for our Hobby Palooza event, please use PayPal Goods and Services to send your money. Last year, Mike's PayPal account was frozen by too many people using friends and family. I will happily donate the PayPal P myself to make your donation whole. Send it to jecoffma@yahoo.com. That was jecoffma@yahoo.com. For every $10 donated, you will have an entry to one of the pieces of artwork created by Scott of Reindeer Studios or Eric Fourleaf that they will be making live on their Hobby Palooza show. Additionally, for collectors have 50 exclusive quad auto channel cards available to the first 50 people who donate and request one. In the notes section with your PayPal payment, at a minimum, please include your YouTube handle. If you want to get one of the autographed channel cards, also include your mailing address. Every dollar collected will be presented by check to Signatures for Soldiers at the National in Cleveland. Thank you for supporting this worthy cause.
All right, we are live. Good to see you all. So this is Spitball Cards, and what we like to do is chat all about modern baseball cards, I would say, as well as sets and everything in between. So on this episode, which is great, we have all 5 of us. This is the first time in a long time we've had 5 individuals. Also, my microphone is not connected yet, so we'll get that connected when someone else speaks. But very first thing I want to talk about, we do want to have a Q&A, but I do want to talk all about Ohtani versus Bryce Harper. So, Phil, what are your thoughts on the MVP race between those two?
Yeah, well, Vegas right now is saying it's pretty close, closer than right after the Mookie injury even. And it looks like after those two guys, then it's quite a ways down the payout list or odds list to guys like Marcell Ozuna, who really won't. Like, I can't see him putting up a 6+ WAR, in my opinion. Being like Ohtani, disadvantaged because he's a DH. He's got that negative adjustment. But can Ozuna really do it the whole season long? I know in 2020 he did something similar, but that was in a partial season. Last year was actually pretty good too, 40 bombs, but didn't really have the batting average. And then Tatis is there, who really we haven't heard his name called like since the season started. But I think he's quietly picked up his production after a quiet April, and we tend to notice that the April standouts more than anything. But yeah, man, with Harper and Ohtani, it's going to be interesting. If either one of those guys wins, it'll be their third, and that'll tie Trout for most MVPs for all active players. So total body of production doesn't yet compare to Trout, but that is pretty impressive if either one of those guys has 3 MVPs. Harper is hurt a little bit this year playing first base. That's going to hurt you a little bit more with that negative adjustment playing first versus corner outfield position. And Ohtani's, of course, hurt a little bit worse playing DH. So, there's still a lot of baseball to be played. I usually don't like to play this game this early. I think, like, if you look at the American League, there's a clear top 4 or so, and I bet 2 of those guys won't be in the top 4 at the end of the year. So right now, I don't know. I don't think any of them is a good value, to be honest. I have a feeling that Harper doesn't do it playing first base. I have a feeling that Ohtani might not be able to hold that lead being a DH. But I think Harper being on the best team in baseball, if that stands, if this team wins 105 games, I think we saw a little bit last year. Acuna get that unanimous MVP over bets.
So interesting thing about Shohei Ohtani, he'll be the second player ever behind Frank Robinson to win an MVP in both leagues, which is something to watch. I do want to share my screen real quick. I want to just compare them because while Bryce Harper's playing a position, it is first base. I know he's been playing a good first base. Oh, I'm trying to share my screen. There we go. Here is how they line up heading into today. So I feel like Ohtani has a pretty clear lead. I know, Chris, we kind of talked about this yesterday a little bit. You said they were close. Does this change your mind, or do you still think they're pretty close, even though Ohtani's crushing him in majority of offensive categories?
I mean, the season is not over. And first base, to quote the Ron Washington character in Moneyball, it's extremely hard to play a good first base. You don't notice your first baseman unless he's bad. And Harper's been doing a really good job. I know he spent all season working on picks, working on the short hops. So, I mean, first base is definitely significantly significantly harder than DHing. So he deserves all the credit for actually playing defense. But yeah, you look at these numbers right now, and Ohtani is definitely far and away the better offensive player. But Harper is also known to be a second half player. So all he has to do is keep this close. And,
sorry, Jeff. What if I told you WAR takes into consideration defensive utility and positioning?
Of course it does. Yeah. But
of course it does, but it doesn't take into consideration voters' priorities. And there's a lot of voters that don't want a DH to win because they think baseball's an offensive and defensive game. So I know you think it's a blowout, Scotty, but I think it's closer.
I don't think it's a blowout.
I don't think he's crushing them in all these offensive statistics. There's a lot that are pretty close. I mean, base running is the biggest difference, but Ohtani does have more games because he got those early games in Korea. But there's a lot of close statistics there. And like Phil was talking about, I think team dominance and playing a position make this a lot closer than maybe you're making it out to be.
Yeah. I mean, the Dodgers are pretty good too, though. I know that Phillies are the best in the NL, but Dodgers are going to win their division easily. They're going to have the number 2 seed. It's not like it's on the Rockies. No offense to the Rockies.
Yeah, but they should be good. I mean, I don't think coming into this year with the giant payroll that the Dodgers had, anybody was expecting them to be poor. I think they're underperforming where people expected them to be, and the Phillies might be overperforming a little bit.
The Phillies are also a top 5 payroll in baseball, though. It's not like they had low expectations, small market team. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here.
Yes, right? You're very much a devil. I know you're hardcore on Ohtani on this as a blowout, but I don't think it's a blowout.
No, I don't think it's a blowout either. I just don't think it's as close as made out.
I don't think it's close
yet, but as close. Ty, what do you think?
I think this could come down to the wire. It could be one of those recency bias votes. So if we do close out the season and the Phillies and the Dodgers both run away, but if, let's say, Ohtani ends up having a, colder August into September and Harper's hot and their numbers end up even like they are now, like a scenario like they are now, maybe Harper closes the gap a little bit. There could be a recency bias thing. There could also recency bias in a couple of ways. Recency bias in that Ohtani's been winning MVPs, an MVP favorite. So maybe the people go the other direction and go, let's give it to Harper. He's sexy going into the playoffs. There's a human element always to it when it comes to the voting aspect, and It is a long season. So I could see both of these guys being there at the end of the year. I don't, like you said, I don't think Ozuna, as good as he's been and as important as he's been to carrying the Braves to even being remotely in the playoff hunt this year, he's probably not, in the conversation. So could Tatis squeak in there? Could Freddie Freeman squeak in there? I don't know. Right now it seems like it's Ohtani's to lose.
It feels like we're going to have a Betts Acuna situation again, where it's pretty clear it's between those two, right? Obviously, Acuna was the whole year until like the end of August. There was some discussion, and then Mookie crapped his pants in September, and Acuna had his best month of his entire year in September, and it blew it out. But it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I do think there is going to be some. Okay, so if you're a media member, who do you? And I have 0 of these cards of either player, so I'm not like invested or concerned about who wins. If the media is going to pick one of these players, like who do you think they would prefer? Like, I know that might be a pointed question towards Ohtani, but I feel like personally the media would want Ohtani to win a third more so than Harper. Do you agree, disagree? What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I think one of the things that could end up deciding this is whose team stays healthier. Right now, the Phillies have been like arguably one of the healthiest teams through the first like 10 or 11 weeks. They lost Trey Turner for about 5 weeks. Didn't really miss a beat, but the Dodgers are just dropping like flies. I mean, the Braves have been killed by injuries, but the Dodgers just keep losing players. So if Ohtani right now can sort of hold the Dodgers afloat, if they win that division by 10 games, it's going to be because of Ohtani and Freeman at this point.
That's a good point, Chris.
They're not getting a lot of help.
They might say Harper had the best pitching staff in baseball. Ohtani did it with all these. Yeah, that's a good point. Narratives, man. Okay, well, we actually had a question. Our first question was about Aaron Judge. And we've discussed Aaron Judge probably to a good extent on our channel, but I do think it's worth discussing. Do you think his cards are undervalued? Do you think they should be higher based off of his performance so far?
He's got to survive the season.
Yeah, I think people are waiting to see it through August before they really buy in because of injury concern.
And we can check with Ty, but they are up, aren't they? Up substantially since the beginning of the season.
Yeah, they're up. I was just gonna pull up some stuff, but yeah, they're up.
I would also argue they were also pretty expensive heading into the season, though. Like he was top player.
Crazy.
I always look at Bowman Chrome autographs as like the indicating factor, and he was like top 3 in all of baseball heading into the year. So it's not like he was cheap necessarily, but if you bought in high,
do you think he'd be even higher if that Bowman Chrome auto had a first on it?
Yes,
I feel like that cost that card like 5%, maybe.
Yeah, not an incredible amount, but a little probably for sure.
A little bit.
Same with the refractors not being numbered on the back.
I was just thinking
Right,
that.
Phil?
Yes, actually, so Silver Jackpot is part of this Hobby Palooza program. He was on at 11 a.m. Eastern, and he said, and he received some pretty harsh criticism in the comments. He called Aaron Judge one of the best players ever, maybe the best ever. And everybody was like, "Wait, who are we talking about?" He's a big Yankees fan. I think what he's meaning to say is he's clearly the best player in baseball right now, which still is debatable because you've got Ohtani, of course.
Yeah.
But I think he believes he's a little bit underrated is kind of where he was coming from. And it's sort of like, the whole buy thesis, try to keep this away from investing. But towards the beginning of the season, he wasn't being treated as like the clear top player or one of the best players in baseball. He was just like a guy that had that Yankee floor kind of built in, keeping his prices from falling too much after a season last year marred by injuries. He's still at 37 home runs. He's still pretty good.
I mean, he's played 7 seasons and 4 have been marred by injuries.
Right.
So he's great when he's on the field, but he isn't on the field enough. He just hasn't been. Maybe it changes in his mid-30s, but who wants to make that bet?
Snake bitten by Trout. Look at what's happened to Trout. He hasn't played. He's played 1 full season in the last 8. So I don't know. I think Judge is getting a healthy amount of respect from the card community for as much as he's played over the last 7 years.
I mean, the last few years, Judge has been pretty healthy. From 2021, he had 148 games. 2022, 157. Last year was 106. But this year, he's already played every game but 1. When is that narrative gone? Because Trout, compared to Trout, it's night and day difference about how healthy he's been.
I'm throwing up the stats from the 3 MVP leaders so far in each league. And this year's AL is reminding me of last year's NL in terms of the race and the closeness of what that felt like last year with, I know Acuna kind of ran away with it at the end, no pun intended, but Betts and Freeman had remarkable seasons too. But I mean, maybe the question to ask, obviously saying Judge is the greatest ever is maybe a weird fan Freudian slip or something, but I mean, he's terrifying. Like if there's one batter as a pitcher that you don't want to face this season, I think it's Judge. And he's on another incredible pace. So it's going to be wild to see. Gunner's having a heck of a season too. It's going to be wild to see how this shapes out throughout the season. It could end up like the Miggy Trout season in terms of WAR versus, pure power numbers.
Yeah, just those comments that were being highlighted from Peeps and David, I think that has a huge effect. Judge starting at age 25 versus some of the younger starts that we've been seeing. I mean, this is just Soto's age 25 year right now. I think that hurts him as being an all-timer for now. If he plays at this level for another 8 years, sure, I'll throw him in that conversation. But I don't think that's likely.
So I think we might have an era defined by peaks over the next little bit with Jacob deGrom, with Shohei Ohtani, who Ohtani's only going to have 60 WAR because he missed 6 seasons and heading into his career. If we're defining careers by peaks, Judge is another example. So since 1970, so how many years is that? 54 years. In the last 54 years, he has the second highest WRC plus ever. It's actually Barry Bonds, Mike Trout, Aaron Judge are tied for second place. So while saying he's the best ever, like, one of the best ever is crazy, he could have one of the best offensive peaks of the last years. And so that's not that crazy of a statement. And I think what we're waiting for is the second MVP. And then once he has that after this year, if he wins it and can stay healthy, and then I think we really might see his cards get to uncharted area, like where Mike Trout's were. But at the same time, that age and the total war might hurt him. Unfortunately, the all-time great discussion.
Scott, there's a question here from Blix Cards. If it might be right up your alley. He asks, can the Mookie Betts 2014 update parallels be the next big flagship cards?
I hope so.
Trout type surge. I would have said there's a really good chance before that asshole on the Royals clipped his hand.
Yeah. I think the 2011 Topps update situation is kind of its own thing. There's no chrome variant. Mike Trout has so few rookies, very few parallels, and looks amazing with the parallels they have. It's its very own unique situation where I don't believe that there's going to be any card ever, at least for the foreseeable future, that will ever rival it from a flagship perspective. I think Mookie's the closest one. Truly, I do. 2014 is the next closest. Harper missed it in 2012 because he doesn't have a true flagship with parallels. His is the short print and then the rookie debut that has parallels. Mookie's the second, but there's going to be a huge gap between the two. I have the clear out of 10, so I hope that's not true, but that's where I think with that Trout.
Yeah, what Mookie has going for him is the lack of autographs, right, Scott?
Yeah.
So that's a little bit different. It still helps, but that's sort of an autograph-specific thing versus helping all of his rookie cards, especially the mass-produced ones.
One thing I'll say, Phil, with that, though, Trout only had 2 rookie autographs with the rookie logo, and one of them was numbered to 109 as the base. So, Trout has about 1,000 total rookie autographs. So Mookie has significantly more rookie autographs, but that props Trout up even more is for rookie cards. There's not really a better autograph or relic variation than the base card. No, it isn't a chrome card either. Mookie has a chrome and parallels in chrome.
Trout only has the one set with on-card rookie autos, right?
Yeah,
finest. Yeah,
and the base is out of 499, X Fractor 299, and then so forth down. So, and the golds are out of 75. They really screwed up that set. Yeah. You guys know because you love Freeman so much.
Yeah.
And then Trout has more non-rookie autographs though versus Betts.
Oh, Trout has every set. He's just every set you can get a Trout. It's kind of unfortunate. Okay, what other questions do we have? Any new ones?
I do agree. I do agree about Judge. If he had debuted 3.5 years earlier, he'd be double his prices right now. Sure. And unfortunately, it's hard to compare him against Trout, who debuted much earlier. But I don't think he'll have sort of the hobby spotlight to himself like Trout did for that period of time. I don't think it's possible for Judge really to take it that far.
Yeah,
because of that age and when he debuted, even with the Yankee factor.
Unless the Yankees can win 2-3 World Series in the next 3-4 years, that might change.
Oh yeah. If someone like Trout or somebody like Judge starts holding up World Series trophies, then I mean his market's never going to go down. The Hall of Fame doesn't even matter for his collecting values.
Yeah, like Phil said, there's a built-in floor, the Yankees floor, but if he had some championships to that.
This is going to be kind of sad to think about, but Aaron Judge has a real good chance of having a higher career WRC plus and OPS plus than Trout because Trout keeps trending down at about the same age as Judge, while Judge is trending in the correct direction. So,
yeah, but he's not going to trend up.
Who do you think's going
to trend up until he's 40?
But they're the same age. Who's going to age more gracefully?
That's a great question. Both have dealt with a lot of injuries at this point.
Trout should have been back by now, man. And he's the slowest healer I've ever seen in my entire life. That man cannot heal.
I just sold my big card of Trout in auction, by the way, or it's being sold. I don't like to look till end of year. It's the Bone Chrome autos on consignment right now, Scott, of Trout. Cool. Because I see the recovery is going to take longer than what a lot of people expect. And that's enough for me to be like, all right, I can probably get this for the same price later or cheaper. I think so with WRC plus, I think it's hard to look at that as a measurement of peak, Scott, because of what we're talking about here, because snapping it halfway through the career, I think you have to look at WRC plus for the top 5 seasons of every star player that ever lived. And then compare that and average a WRC plus, not like the career WRC plus, which for Judge inevitably will fade by how much we don't know. And by the way, one more stat, in a primary DH, other than Ohtani in 2021, has never won the MVP before. David Ortiz has, I believe, like top five finishes, including a second. And Jose Abreu in 2020 was still a first baseman like 80 to 90% of the time, because I was checking on that.
Frank Thompson, first baseman when he won his MVP, was he?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we got a couple questions I think we should get to, Scott. Could you highlight this Lincoln Thomas comment? I just want to say something about it really quick. If there's an award for most innuendo jammed into one YouTube live comment, Lincoln Thomas absolutely just won this award.
His Jack London quote? Yeah,
yes, the Jack London quote. Fantastic. Not reading it aloud. We're not commenting on it, but that's well done. That's good wordplay right there.
Cool. I love it.
Swamp Gator had a question. The next comment, I think.
How short is the Wyatt Langford printed in Series 2? How is it really rare? Is it something they should think is a short print? I would say how many eBay results are there right now, shall we?
Yeah. It's not short. I think you can buy that for under $50 right now. The Churio Jeff and I saw on Thursday is going for about 40.
Yeah.
So it's looking like Vlad no number.
Yes.
Ratio.
Not bat down numbers. No. But Wyatt Langford has been quietly turning it on. I've seen a lot of people talk about his Rookie of the Year odds might be worth spending a few dollars on.
Yeah, Grand Slam last night.
He did.
Good for him.
I saw that too, Jeff, and then I saw that he has a 0.2 FanGraphs WAR, I think this morning, or maybe that was yesterday before counting the Grand Slam. I forget, but yeah, plus 900 for Rookie of the Year. It seems wide open.
Yeah,
it looks like there's about 100 of those have sold so far, give or take.
100, jeez.
Of the SPs.
There's 382 available right now on eBay. 391, sorry. At least when I search Langford Series 2, and I'm scrolling down, and they all seem like either the autograph or the base card.
Yeah,
but yeah, to Swamp Gator's question, we talked about this card on Spitball, and I think we all generally agreed that if we were going to buy a flagship Langford card, we're waiting till update.
Yeah,
get a cool parallel. Get a black parallel.
Black or a gold mirror.
Yeah, or Independence Day. How do the Independence Day looks this year? Are they pretty good? I haven't looked at Series 1. They're nice. So that's like, I don't know. I love that parallel.
Best one since 19.
Will Juan Soto resign? Let's all say this our answer when I say 3, 2, 1 now. On now, we'll say our answer, okay? 3, 2, 1 now. Yeah.
No.
Yes. Who said yes?
I did.
Okay. Who said no? Phil, did you say maybe?
I said maybe, yeah.
Yes or no, Phil?
Come on, Phil.
Same.
Riding that fence.
This is Phil's MO. He rides the fence perfectly, so he always looks right.
It's going to be one of the Yankees' best seasons, like by regular season playoff standards in such a long time. So even if Soto fades and is super inconsistent like he generally is, then they're going to think that like he's the missing ingredient. He's the guy that they need in the lineup. Him and Judge, that's going to be enough, and then 7 nobodies, and Volpe's a borderline nobody. But
ask the Angels, it worked really well for them.
I would say if he hasn't re-signed by like September, then he's going to sign with the Mets for $600 million.
You have to think of one.
Steve Cohen will outbid everyone. Soto will go to the Mets. His cards will tank. His career won't matter.
Why would
I think he cares about the money?
Like, I don't think he cares that much though. If it's a difference between 570 and 640, I think he's going to stay at the Yankees because I think he realizes what direction both franchises are going in right now with how bad I think the Mets are set up to succeed in the short term. Yeah. While if he does have success with the Yankees, I don't think when you're dealing with that high, it'll make that much of a difference.
Everything you said is exactly right, but that's not what happens.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting about Soto that I appreciate about him as a player, and that, I mean, this is why some people don't like him, that he'll stand up there and take his walks. He's not always trying to hit home runs. But part of that, I love that in his personality, that he doesn't seem to care if he's the guy or not. It's not like he feels, at least outwardly, overshadowed by a guy like Judge. And I feel like they play well off each other. So I think there's some players who would not want to be in the shadow of a guy like Aaron Judge. But I think Soto fits that perfectly. And he knows that the direction of the franchises are going, like you said. So
that's a good point. Yeah.
I think Soto wants to win. He's already won a World Series. I think once you get that taste, it's harder to be like a Trout and re-sign with the Angels at that point. Like to be fully transparent. I think that there's no team other than the Yankees. The Mets are obviously number 2, but outside of those two, who's even gonna go for him and afford him? I saw someone say the Braves. I've asked Chris about this. Chris says they're too cheap because they're publicly traded. I don't know.
Also they have a left fielder. Kelnick is locked in for 4 more years. The center fielder is locked in for 6 years. Their right fielder is at least under contract till 2028. So they're not spending. He's a superfluous player for them.
Great. Hey, there's a comment here from Filmington. Mets on the rise. Lindor average above 240.
Yeah.
How about
But
that?
are they re-signing Alonso? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
They're not. They offered him like $150 million extension. He didn't take it. I cannot imagine him being worth more than that.
Isn't that what Blake Snell turned down from the Yankees? Or sorry, that Boris turned down for Snell from the Yankees?
Yeah. I don't think that contract's even on the table. Has he been that good this year? I haven't heard too much from Pete.
No, but the fans still love him. They're going to be really pissed at ownership if they let him walk.
Yeah, he's a big time fan favorite there.
16 home runs, a 130 OPS plus. His OPS is 798. So he's having an okay year.
He'd be the third best player on the Yankees.
He'd be the third best player on a lot of teams. But do you want to pay your third best player $30 million a year for 5 years?
Let's find out about Vlad. Let's see what happens with Vladdy.
He had a home run today.
Yep.
To spoil it for anybody. Sorry.
He's been turning up the power.
The battery. Carlisle Road with a great comment here. The Braves aren't too cheap. They just don't spend stupid. I agree. Since Anthopoulos took over, they don't throw money around.
Question for you, though. If there was ever a time to spend that much money on a player, isn't it a 26-year-old perennial MVP candidate?
I mean, on paper, sure.
Like anybody could sign Harper for more than the 330 the Phillies gave him. And I bet you a lot of teams wish they would have.
You guys don't think the Giants aren't a play on Soto?
I don't think Soto's going to San Francisco.
No, I don't think he wants to be media relevant. He doesn't want to go out there.
He also does not do well in that division. He's been there, done that, I think, and didn't like it. He's been really good on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm. That's
and don't think I'm biased. I'm from Idaho. I'm not. I just watch.
That's probably true.
So Mookie says that Mets fans are excited about the youngsters, and they do have a lot of young, impressive players and pitchers. He says Pete Love is waning, not what it was in the spring. So maybe that the affair between the Mets fans and Alonso's is on the rocks.
All right, Mookie, who are you most excited about? Obviously, you have Francisco Alvarez. Outside of him, who are you really excited about? Because I saw Acuna is struggling. Angel Acuna hasn't been as good. Brett Beatty hasn't quite clicked. Like, what are we excited about as a Mets fan?
Vientos is doing all right. What about Christian Scott? Is he the next thing? He seems legit.
Phil, you know Christian Scott?
Who's that outfielder guy? Or I don't know if he's an outfielder, but he's an athletic guy. Where we talked about him.
Oh yeah.
What was that guy's name?
Yeah,
Somebody mentioned him.
On the Mets?
They should get Ronnie Mauricio back next year, right?
Yeah, he might be back even towards the end of the season.
Hey, what's up, Lucky Peter? Thanks for joining.
Hey
Phil, what about this?
Jet Williams.
Signs of the pastime.
Yeah, Jet Williams.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Scott, can you highlight signs of the pastime?
Can I highlight these, or is that you doing it, Ty? Thank you.
Oh, whoever's doing it. Yeah.
Oh, cool. It's not me either.
John's doing it.
Oh, all right. Oh, thanks, John. Yeah. What about this, Phil? What do you think? Another lefty in a ballpark built for righties?
We might pretend to go after him, but we won't get him.
Yeah,
we'll be in the top 10 finalists.
At least the top 30
without submitting an offer.
Wow. Can you imagine though if they went like Soto, Devers, Casas? That's so much lefty power in a ballpark built for righties. It's so weird.
Is Duran a lefty?
Yeah, I think Duran's a lefty
so
too.
Duran's great this year too. That's too lefty heavy.
Yeah,
they're committed to Devers.
Yeah, I mean, you got Story's going to play at least like 4 or 5 games in there as a righty, so you got that. That'll break it up.
Dude, as a Rockies fan, I miss Trevor Story. I miss that guy, and I miss when he was healthy.
Yeah, I mean, Casas and Devers are okay for that stadium because they're strong enough to hit it out pull side, and they go opposite field enough to take advantage of the monster.
And so is Soto. Soto would be perfect. He goes opposite field all the time, and he would do it more there.
Yeah.
Trevor Story's cards have tanked, by the way, like completely tanked.
That feels like that should have happened 5 years ago.
Yes,
they're just like they cost nothing. They cost nothing. I've seen some on eBay pop up and been like, wait, what? How is that? That card's like $20. Whoa.
All right, Scott, buy him up.
I think the only collectors of Trevor Story are Rockies fans at this point. I don't think Red Sox fans want anything to do with his cards. If I had to guess, I'm sure there's not too much love there.
No, and someone mentioned Troy Tulo in the comments here. We've seen all of Tulo's cards are basically worthless, Jeff, except one.
Except one card.
Except one, right?
Man.
Can we highlight that Neo cards and comics?
Oh yeah.
So that's a reference. I had one of his best cards because Stephen Kwan doesn't have a Topps Chrome on card auto except for what's from Sapphire update, and he doesn't have a Bowman Chrome Auto or a first Bowman at all, I don't think. So I took that. It's an orange number to 25, and that year they didn't make any numbered variants that were anything like higher up than an orange. So there were orange, reds, purples, and supers.
Is that 2022, Phil?
Yeah. So no gold autos, I don't believe. So I bought a raw copy of Kwan's auto, and there was a lot of demand. Like after that season where he finished probably third MVP, rookie of the year voting, maybe second. He finished above Bobby Witt, maybe behind Pena. Him and Pena were 2-3 or whatever, and J-Rod finished first. And there was a lot of demand for Stephen Kwan, and he tended to have he had a pretty strong fan base. I could tell a lot of collectors are buying his stuff. So I figured I got to sell this ASAP. So I submitted it to HGA, and they gave me a 9.5. Now this listing, when I bought it, it was raw, and it said it was one of those where it was in the description, read in all caps. And there were multiple flaws with the card on the front and the back, and HGA missed both. Not surprising. So I made a little 1-minute video of me doing sending it to HGA and doing a Scooby-Doo voice because I'm showing myself putting it into the mailbox, and I ended up flipping it right when I got it back, and I doubled my money. Now there's one of those cards up for auction that's raw, number to 25, an orange Kwan, and it's already at what I sold it for. So it's damn it, should have held it maybe. And
you couldn't have
condition. Mine was.
You couldn't have predicted Stephen Kwan was going to be this good.
So that's an important. I think this is something important to talk about. So 2-time Gold Glove winner. So similar to Luis Arias, some of these guys, they're not war darlings, but eventually there's a moment where it's Jesus, this guy's pretty damn good, and he's neglected by the hobby. So with Kwan, it would be even harder to see this coming, because at least with Luis Arias, he hits above 300 most years. Kwan had not hit above 300 at all yet, but now he's hitting. What's his current batting average? I think I have it up.
390.
Yeah.
He had a home run today too, by the way. I just watched it.
390.
We'll see where that ends at the end of the season. Plus, he's in Cleveland. I think this is a good time to get out.
Yeah, it could be. But I think the key was so he missed some time probably in April or May. And it was when he qualified for the batting leader. It was when that switched over and he had the minimum number of plate appearances, and he still had a 390 average, which people didn't expect him to have. But I think that would have been the time to sell. And I mean, this year, some of the changes he's making, he's making better contact, obviously hitting more line drives. His strikeout rate is at 7.4%. And that's where Luis Arias hovers around when he's at his best, which is a third of the major league average, basically.
So I want to share my screen real quick. I just submitted a request. Give me 1 second.
All right. While you do that, I want to apologize to Neo about the Cleveland slander. I love Cleveland, but as we've talked about on our show and with Scott, the Jose Ramirez, the lack of respect that he gets in the hobby community, despite his career, makes me think that nobody in Cleveland, just like my Milwaukee guys, will ever amount to anything in the hobby, sadly.
Yeah. And Jose Ramirez, I actually want to talk about him because he has a similar but worse start than Stephen Kwan. Jose Ramirez didn't really get a full season until his age 23 season, and he had a couple bad years at the beginning. They weren't good, right? He was not Jose Ramirez. Even in the minor leagues, he wasn't Jose Ramirez. And then he really turned it on and became great. What? I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 out. He'll probably have one this year in the top 10 too. So 6 out of 7 the last 7 years, top 10 in MVP finishes. So it's one of those things though where can Stephen Kwan replicate that, right? He had his first 2 seasons, which were way better than Jose Ramirez's first few seasons.
Yeah, but how old is
he debuted later. He debuted at 24. He's 26 this year. So, but one thing I will say, Phil, is Kwan, unlike Luis Arias, isn't a defensive liability. Arias is really bad defensive. They're comparing him to Tony Gwynn, and it kind of makes me shudder a little bit because Gwynn was a great defender. He did a lot of things well, while Arias has one tool. And that's just hit, which is great. It helps your team, but it's not. I can't see it long-term propping him up at all. But Kwan,
I got to step in. We can't let this become a Scooble conversation. That's 4 minutes on Stephen Kwan. That's got to be enough. That's got to be enough talking about Stephen Kwan. It has to be.
Next question.
We've had
Let's talk about Scooble.
Thank you.
Yes, there's a lot of Gunner questions in the chat. We got to get to him. I know we touched briefly on the AL MVP battle and who are the faces of baseball, and Gunner and Bobby Witt Jr. sure are making a run for that.
Okay, so I want to do the same thing. We're going to do in this count of 3. We're going to say if we think he's a better long or short term hold. All right, one.
Wait,
better. There's a question: is Gunner Henderson a long or short term hold?
Oh, okay.
So is he long or
Sell
short?
now.
Yep. Say long or short. 3, 2, 1. Now long.
Long.
Okay. I think he's a long-term hold. I do. I think he's gonna, as long as he stays healthy. If he's able to stay healthy, he has good defense, good offense on a great team. It's going to be a perennial contender. I don't know. It seems like a good bet, to be honest.
Yeah, he's got a great supporting cast and new ownership that isn't the Angelos family. Thank heavens. And they want to win. They're going to make that team win. Baltimore is an amazing baseball city when the team is going well. Yeah, I love Gunnar Henderson. He is the number one guy. Jeff and I have talked about it. This offseason, we debated buying a big Gunnar Henderson card, and we didn't. And I think we're gonna regret that for a long time.
Thanks, Mango. Yeah, we bought Garrett Cole instead, but at least he's back.
He's back.
He's alive.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I bought Nolan Arenado.
For the record, guys, I was the only one to say short term with Gunnar Henderson, but I'm also the only guy that has a futures bet on him MVP. So if you recall, if any of you guys watch our channel, Spitballin Cards, only 2 of the 4 of us that were on. So to be fair, one of the 5 of us was not. I forget who wasn't on, but we did a who is a better buy right now, Corbin Carroll or Gunnar Henderson, and Ty and I picked Gunnar, and Scott.
I picked Corbin Carroll.
Yeah,
you know what? We don't want to live in the past.
Yeah, I don't remember being on that one, but if I was,
I'm
the
sure
great Mark McGuire said, let's not live in the past.
I'm sure I said something like, they both could be good, but if I had to guess, which is a cop out, but
One of them has like 25 home runs. The other one's hitting a $195. Like
I didn't know Corbin Carroll's shoulder got annihilated last year. I didn't know he was
still is that
damaged good.
There's something else going on there, but like Phil was joking before, we were talking about Gunnar being overshadowed, and I know that's. I believed that there was so much talent in Baltimore, so much young talent. It would be hard to separate yourself from the pack. With guys like Adley and all the hype that Jackson Holliday was getting before he ever had a major league at bat. So I'm not sure if I was on that show or not, but I believe I would have been in the Gunnar's going to have a hard time breaking out from that group. But man, he just continues to amaze. So
yeah,
I
he
think
had broken out.
I think that was the exact conversation we had, Jeff. That's great.
Some comments were like, "Oh, I mean, he's going to be overshadowed by Jackson Holliday, you idiots! Like, why would you ever pick Gunnar Henderson?" And to be fair, he's still, a little bit lost. Not completely. His hobby is still cheaper than J-Rod. Does it deserve to be in the comments? So J-Rod's down 30 to 40% from like March prices. I was looking at like one card. Gunnar is still a little bit cheaper. Obviously, Gunnar is up. Who should be more expensive right now? I think that's an interesting question.
I would take Gunnar personally. I
think J-Rod should be more expensive now, but they are definitely trending like in different directions. Like J-Rod's first 2 seasons are as good as you could ever ask a young player to be, and now he's struggling. But Gunnar's still in his like second season, so I don't know.
J-Rod had a 129 OPS plus last year. It wasn't that good.
I mean, rookie of the year, 2 top 5 MVP finishes?
7 and 4.
7 and 4. So 2 top 10 MVP finishes in a rookie of the year.
30 season last year. So maybe too hard on him, but.
And don't forget the eyes, guys. He's got those beautiful blue eyes. I mean,
he's also younger.
Yeah.
Gunner's on pace for like an 11 WAR. It's kind of scary. I know, like, when his average started to dip below 260, I'm like, this is it. This is his flaw, is the batting average. Earlier on in the season, when we talked about him, I compared him to like Rafael Devers and Austin Riley. And I was like, well, he's faster. He's a better defender and playing shortstop, which we didn't expect him to play 100% shortstop. Last year was 50%. He's got a better walk rate. It's probably down a little bit this year. And he's got the ability to put up similar power. So like he's a WAR beast if he can figure out the batting average and be more consistent. Last year, he was a tale of 2 halves, very different players. So,
Ty, what is this mix of players we're looking at?
This is your all disappointment team of 2024. Some guys who, for different reasons, obviously, Bregman coming into a contract year. I drafted him on what I thought was going to be a steal in my fantasy baseball league, and he's been a little bit better recently.
He's been better lately compared to all those other guys.
But he's been terrible. Just all of these guys in terms of production have been horrendous. And these 2 guys obviously like don't really belong in this list, and yet like in the flashes last year,
I think you have them in the right list.
Jones last year, was unbelievable, and
I kept him in a fantasy league.
Yeah.
He's been hurt. So let's see.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Yeah. So like, which of these guys would you expect to see get it going sooner than later?
Julio has to be Julio.
Yeah,
he's gonna have a big second half. He usually does.
Yeah,
I've been thinking about trying to scoop up some of his cards actually. because I feel like he's to your point. I think he's going to get it going. Like, let's see the All-Star break and watch him come out and just start tearing it up.
To be honest, I didn't. I thought his numbers were worse than that. I haven't looked at his stats. I didn't know he's close to 2 WAR on the season, and that his OPS plus. Crazy. So he's been almost league average. And the way that I've kind of thought him as being just abysmal this year, and compared to what we expected, that's true. But
defense and base running WAR isn't as sexy as offensive WAR, which is what's killing him.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Bo Bichette for like 2 seconds? I don't want to this big long conversation. So what the heck happened to him?
Yeah, what's going on,
dude? He went from he was 1 injury away from leading the league in hits for 3 straight years last fall to now this. So that's a huge drop off. So now what do the Blue Jays do?
They're falling apart.
It's crazy when you look at that Blue Jays team. The last 3 years, they feel like they've been on the cusp of winning a World Series. Every spring, you look at the roster and you're like, here we go. And they don't put it together. Yeah. The Manoah thing is truly mystifying. I don't know if we're ever going to really understand what happened there.
Manoah, that player just got hit with the PD suspension. I don't know his name off the top of my head.
Elvis Martinez.
Yep. Yeah. Vlad probably still has a sub 800 OPS, which is still way better than league average this year in particular, but it's still not what you'd expect from him.
What about Trevor Bauer striking out 19 in that Mexican league yesterday or 2 days ago or whenever that was?
I heard the Astros have had conversations with Bauer.
Yeah.
So I mean, how long can these teams keep ignoring him? That's what I really want to know. There's some teams really struggling.
Depends how desperate the teams get.
Yeah. I mean, I really want to stay away from politics and controversial issues here, but with Colin Kaepernick, it's a little bit different because Bauer's proving that he can help a team out right now. Yeah, in my opinion. I'll keep it as simple as that.
Well, I mean, there wasn't a place for Kaepernick to go. I think Bauer sought that out and thought I'm going to prove that I can still perform at the required level. And so, it is getting a little harder.
Well, one thing Bauer does really well is he's a healthy pitcher. He's not really had a major injury in the last few years. And so that's a big deal because Major League Baseball is getting slaughtered with injuries. And so there may be teams desperate enough to sign him.
Yeah, I mean, they just have to clear it in the clubhouse. James just says in the comments here, Bauer was not a good teammate. I know a lot of teammates did not like him. It's a lot of videoing in your face in the clubhouse, and he's a pain in the ass. So, but I mean, if a team gets desperate, I could see him doing it. But I mean, the Dodgers sure as hell are never going to have him back. And I imagine most big market teams don't want to deal with it. They just don't want to deal with the media. They don't want to deal with it.
Agreed. I kind of feel like he's going to get signed by somebody like the Pirates or Scott's favorite Pirates.
Yeah. Well, the Astros, they signed a few players kind of in this situation. Have you listened to the book Winning Fixes Everything about the cheating scandal? I'm actually not that critical of the Astros at this point after listening to that book, but it talks about when they signed or traded for Ozuna. Is that the guy who was hit with the domestic abuse?
Yeah.
And the Astros knew it and still signed him. They just wanted the best player. They didn't care about the way that it looked, type of a thing. So maybe the Astros are the right one. They just say, hey, we want to win and we will have a winning team and a winning culture. And we are needing it right now. Who knows? So
do we want to hit a Blix Cards? Has a question up here about Carlos Correa.
Which is interesting because he's become fantasy baseball relevant as well as real baseball relevant of late. Yeah. And he was definitely on a Hall of Fame path. How much is he tarnished by that Astros legacy and his being in purgatory in Minnesota?
Yeah. He's got some great postseason numbers, though. A lot of career leaderboards. He shows up. He shows up on some important stats. His WAR has been good. I know he's been hurt a lot lately. But if anyone can, if the Twins manage to actually get over the hump and win a playoff series again, you would think that would matter to someone, to some people in the hobby, right? I don't know.
Yeah. I think, he's got a chance at the Hall of Fame. Whether or not he'll be hobby relevant is another question.
Right.
So, I'm going to look up a stat. While I'm looking it up, I want to hear all your thoughts. So since 1960, how high do you think his WRC plus is for his career for all shortstops? Because I think it's pretty high. I could be wrong. We're going to find out right now.
All right. Yeah.
For all shortstops?
For all shortstops. So this is their whole careers. Obviously, you have a lot of modern guys. One, because they're still playing and having other decline years. But two, shortstops has lately become an offensive position compared to the past. So with that being said, and me giving you those clues, where do you think he is all time? Well, since 1960 from WRC plus at the shortstop position.
22.
22?
15.
I'd say top 15.
Ty?
17.
He's number 5 since 1960. Number 5. And he's a platinum glove winner. And that's just like why WAR really that is a valuable player for a team. To have a shortstop who's top 5 WRC plus since 80 years ago. Number 1, Alex Rodriguez. Number 2 right now is Gunnar Henderson. So take that with a grain of salt. Then Tatis, Seager, Correa, Hanley Ramirez, Nomar Garcia-Parra, Wander Franco, Trey Turner, Bo Bichette, number 10. Then Derek Jeter with a 119 at number 11. So very recent.
I can't believe Bo Bichette's that high.
He'll drop fast, though, with what's going on.
You lead the league in hits, 2 years in a row. Good things will happen.
Yeah. I've always kind of been a Correa apologist, and I shouldn't be, but I think he's pretty good.
No, he is. And he's for all accounts, he's a great clubhouse guy, too. Like a really good leader on the field. There was a lot of talk about that was something the Astros were going to miss after he left. Didn't exactly happen, but.
Yeah, and the whole offseason when he was kind of injured and then was flirting with signing with the Mets? Was that?
And the Giants.
And the Giants. Yeah.
Yeah.
He filled the physical for both.
Yeah, that kind of just was, I don't know. He's got to bounce back from that and the World Series issue. But I think he is a very valuable player on the field.
To be transparent, after both the failed physicals for his ankle, I believe it was his ankle, and then he had a down year last year, I thought maybe there really is something wrong. But this year he's proving that he was fine. It might have been just one of those weird years, right? After he missed out on those massive contracts or other nagging injuries. Okay,
you could definitely follow the Scott Rowland path into the Hall of Fame.
And offensively, he's probably way ahead of the pace of Rowland.
Yeah. And he has a World Series. There's Rowland a World Series.
He did, yeah. The 06. Actually, I think, 06 for the Cardinals.
So what other questions do we have? We have a few minutes left. I think we have about 13 or so.
Okay. Someone in the comments mentioned that I was being too flowery with Julio Rodriguez's first 2 seasons. He's like, you got to look at Pujols. And Pujols' first 2 seasons, that's why he hit 700 home runs and it's going to coast into the Hall of Fame as one of the 5 best right-handed hitters of all time. Julio is not that yet.
No.
Yeah. That's what helps with the age. It's like you use the age as an argument for long-term upside, but also use that to kind of hedge against of course his WAR was only 6. He's just basically learning how to play the game. He's only 20. He can't put up a 9 WAR yet versus a 25-year-old that comes into the league with more physical build already in their favor.
Yeah, you were itching to say glutes right there, Phil. I could see it on your face. You wanted to
build. Do we want to talk about Oscar Colas real quick?
Yeah.
Does anybody have any strong emotions about Oscar Colas here?
I mean, the Sox in general are kind of a disaster, aren't they?
Yeah.
Outside of Garrett Crochet, yeah.
That's true.
Heading into 2023, he was a top 100 prospect, and he just hasn't done it the last 2 years.
He had the nickname the Cuban Ohtani for a while because he was a 2-way player, I think. And not a lot of people know this, and the pitching wasn't supposed to translate or happen. But yeah, Colas. I mean, if you look at his makeup, it's like the exact opposite of what guys like me and Scott go for with walk rates, game power and all that stuff.
Wow. I feel personally attacked, and I think Jeff and Ty, we should all feel attacked by that comment.
Thanks, Phil. Me and you are the smartest ones here.
Yeah, we look for the crappiest walk rates.
Yeah. Give me a high strikeout rate. I want big swing and miss.
A lot of missed games, especially.
Oh yeah, give me a Lewis Robert all day. That's our next big buy.
Phil and I sold you on pitchers, and you bought into it, so that's on you guys. I'm just checking.
Well, Mookie's asking about Paul Skenes. Is anybody buying him now?
Yeah.
Let me check a couple of his cards and see what's been going on. That's a good question.
T-Pott, you work in a card shop. What baseball players do you hear customers talk about or ask about the most?
I mean, currently, I hear about asking about Braves players because we're in Atlanta. Yeah. But other than that, most of what I hear is prospects. That's what I hear. A lot of prospecting. Just they're looking to the next guys. I don't hear. I mean, I'm not on the floor a ton, talking to people, but everything I hear is about prospects more than anything. Not necessarily guys who are actually in the league now, which is interesting. So
gambling.
It's a weird hobby that we're in.
With Skenes, he's important for somebody like me who's been burnt on pitchers, but I try to be a little more rational about it, knowing that what happened in the past might not happen again, even though it seemingly does with all these pitchers. Try to be a little bit less emotional than maybe the guy in the bottom left of the screen. Not to call it any names or anything.
Phil, that's the definition of insanity, what you just described.
Guys like Skenes and previous years Strider, anybody that has like high anticipated volatility, like like with Strider, you knew in the past like his stuff would go up 200% and go down, and get cut in half. Skenes needs to fall out of like the complete hobby spotlight, which he's probably already starting to do, and especially if it doesn't win Rookie of the Year. And that's a guy I'll look at in the offseason. Like Royce Lewis is another one. It doesn't always have to be pitchers. And when I think that there's a chance that this guy could easily double by not needing to do a whole lot, it's just that people seem to forget about him, like what T-Pott's saying, and moved on to the next group of players, the next prospects. Skenes is a guy that could fit that mold in the offseason, October, November. And, he could be fantasy baseball rankings come out and he's all of a sudden like a top 5 starting pitcher. And people are like, oh, he's that good already? Like, wait a second. He does have long-term upside. And it won't be that. It'll be like accomplishments and buzz in the spring. He could be an interesting target. I don't know. I don't know how expensive he is right now, though.
Skenes is he's come down. If I'm looking at the last 30 days on like his Bowman PSA 10 paper, chrome, auto, refractor, those types of everything's come down. There's which is
crazy, right? Because
what more come down?
What more would you have expected from?
I mean, he was up. He was completely nuclear. He was up. He's obviously pitching great, but I think things got really hot. But there's a pretty consistent trend with these guys when they come up that if you're speculating on prospects and waiting for their call up and want to sell, like the best cards to buy, honestly, are their super liquid ones, like their paper and chrome PSA 10s. Those are the ones that shoot up the most, and then they're the leading indicators that start to come down. So when I see his papers down 32%, and then his chrome and his autos are down like 10% over the last 30 days, to me, that's inertia that's going to show those other ones are coming. Like they're just trailing behind a little bit typically.
Ty, what were they the year prior till his debut? Can you look at that for us?
Yeah, I can pull it up too.
While you're pulling that up, I won't be buying Skenes just because there's too much risk, and you guys have seen me be very risk averse. I just go for the little bit more safe plays and make a little bit smaller percentage, and that's fine.
So he debuted on May 11th.
Even if that means missing and not having any exposure into the best baseball player of all time, Royce Lewis, which was called a 305 card collector. Look at his.
Hey,
so what did he have? Like
question. He's just asking the question.
350 plate appearances, maybe in his career, with 32 home runs, something like that. Like, so he's a 60 home run guy.
So yes, Phil, answer a question. Yeah. Same with missing out on Ohtani. It's fine. Yeah. One of those things, Ty, do you have those numbers? We have like 1 minute left.
I'm pulling them up. Here we go. If you want to share.
I still think missing out on Ohtani is going to haunt you. It's going to haunt you for a long time.
I don't know. If I had his cards, I just want to sell them.
Oh man, he's just so exciting, and you just anyway.
The way you've been pumping him for MVP, Scott, I feel like you have a secret stash of Ohtani cards in there.
Right? No, I was thinking the same thing, Jeff.
I hate the Dodgers, and I don't have any of his cards. I just think he is the winner if the season ended today.
So you hate the team your favorite player plays on?
Huh?
So you hate the team that your favorite player plays on? That's a really weird.
I absolutely hate them. I haven't watched one inning. Even they played
their intense rivalry over the years with the Colorado Rockies that gets Scott.
We're like this 7-year-old brother that gets beat up all the time. We never even won our division. I don't like the Dodgers.
Right.
All
right. Well, that's a set. We'll get back to that.
The Ohtani thing. I was going to bring this up earlier, but I was talking about how like a primary DH has never won MVP unless you count Ohtani in 2021, who was a pitcher too, so it doesn't really count. So this would be the real first DH ever. I think what will allow voters to vote DH is because the WAR system gives people a system to do so in a methodical way, in consistent manner. DHs are already getting penalized in that calculation. Yes. So they can do that without feeling like, oh, but we're taking this away from a position player. Maybe it requires more skill. No, they're already being penalized with the DH.
And I think not all of the old school media is aboard that train, but yes, as the voting transitions to the younger demographic voter, that's absolutely right.
I will say though, if you can have a 7 WAR as a DH, that's just absolutely
incredible,
mind-boggling,
outrageous,
mind-boggling.
And he's going to blow by 7. He's going to get back past 7.
He's already he does today. He's already at 4.5 to 5.
Yeah, I bet he gets 8. I think he could get 8 this year.
If he does,
Harper won't get 8 as a first baseman, I don't think.
Harper doesn't
Yeah,
do-
it'll be
he doesn't
really
run
hard.
well enough like Ohtani. All right, I think we're done.
But just imagine that NLCS of Harper and Ohtani just going like
And Mookie.
home run for home
And
run, back
Freeman
and forth for
Mookie
7
back.
games.
And
Yeah.
Mookie.
Man.
It's great. I love the passion you guys bring to this. I see you can talk about it all day, but
True.
it is time to go for today.
All right.
No, we're just getting started.
Yeah. We're ready for hour number 2. Well,
All right.
thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank
Thanks,
you.
John.
It was fun.
Thanks for joining in. Everybody, don't forget, if you haven't donated yet, Signatures for Soldiers. We're trying to raise lots of money for a very worthy cause for veterans and even existing military members. So, all right. Thanks a lot, guys. Next up is going to be Showcase Showdown with Baseball Collector in Christopher, Missouri. So,
Thanks, guys.
thank
Enjoy
you.
your Sunday.
Have a good
Hey,
Sunday.
bye, guys.
National,
Bye-bye.
Cleveland.
Yes.